afternoon and welcome back. It is my great pleasure to share this dais with one of the finest chess players of the world, Padma Vibhushan Viswanathan. Viswanathan, or Vishy Anand as he is widely known, has a long series of firsts and only ones to his credit. First one to achieve the title of Grandmaster from India in 1987, Vishy Anand is rightly credited for putting India on the global chess map. A winner of World Chess Championship title 5 times, he is the first and the only person in chess history to have won this title in all formats: match, knockout and tournament. He is also a recipient of great honors and awards, the very first awardee of Khel Ratna in 91-92, recipient of Padma Shri at the age of 18 years, recipient of second highest civilian honor of India, Padma Vibhushan, and the first sports person to be awarded the Padma Vibhushan, recipient of Chess Oscar for 6 years, and the list goes on. So the question is, where does Padma Vibhushan, world champion, Viswanathan Anand fit in with our conference? The theme of our conference is Reimagine. The event has been curated to help CAs and finance professionals to get ready for the rapidly changing, technology-driven, integrated world ahead. A world where professionals across various disciplines will be compelled to collaborate to thrive, a world without boundaries. Chess is a game that requires strategic thinking and also meticulous execution. It requires one to prepare for years and yet play at the speed of light. The game requires constant assessment of risks and rewards and a deep understanding of the psychology of the opponent. I am so scared to sit beside Viswanathan Anand because he says that from the breadth of the opponent, I can make out the state of his mind. So, our profession today needs to develop such strategic thinking coupled with polished execution, alertness in decision making, ability to take risks, and most of all, the audacity to think big, to think beyond our cocoons and venture out in the world with confidence that we will win. We could not have found a better speaker than Grandmaster and World Champion Viswanathan Anand to share with us his insights based on his remarkable journey, vast global experience, personal excellence, and sustained mastery in his chosen sport. Well, in this audience, there are many people who are rank holder chartered accountants. I can bet that every one of you, if I ask, would you like to take the exam again and become a rank holder? Most of us would say no, that is not possible. So to win once, a lot of factors play. But to win consistently requires a lot more. It is said that some people excel for a reason, some excel for a season, and very few excel for a lifetime in every field they choose to be. In Vishy Anand, we have a live example of someone who has displayed consistent, sustained excellence, not only in the game of chess, but through his sterling leadership qualities demonstrated in every walk of his life. We are indeed privileged and honored, Vishy Anand, to have you with us today. And we will draw a lot from you. If I have to say that when I look back, that what would have inspired Vishy Anand to become who he has become, what comes to my mind is a poem by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but yet make allowance for their doubting too, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat these two imposters just the same, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. This is something which embodies the spirit and the personality that we have with us today. And with this, I start our fireside chat with question answers. And please draw as many leadership lessons as you can from today's session. So the very first question I would like to ask is, it said that two words diverged in a wood and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So I would like to know that what made you choose chess as a career? For a champion, there is a point of time or a moment when the person realizes that I have an extraordinary talent or extraordinary potential in this field. What was that moment for you? Or what was that period for you? And what experiences of your early years came together to allow you to make that choice or to give you the confidence of making that choice?
Okay, so the answer to that is simply, I did not arrive at the decision by any sort of logic. I learned the game sort of by accident. My elder brother and sister were playing chess, and they are much older than me. So of course, immediately I went and pestered my mother. I want to learn it as well. Can you teach me? Luckily, my mother was a chess player, and so she taught me the rules, and I tried to join in. Then for a while, I was at home. I think everyone noticed that every chance I got, I kept going back to the chessboard. So there's something clearly drawing me to it. And they put me in a chess club. I stuck around. This is a thing that many chess players will be able to relate to. You get addicted. First of all, playing in competitions and trying to do better time becomes its own reason to pursue the game. And I found it difficult at that stage to imagine doing something other than being a chess player. I mean, I went through my studies in school, but for me it was always chess first. And I was incredibly lucky with the timings. So when I finished my 10th standard, I became national champion for the first time, right here in Bombay.
Okay.
Then when I finished my +2, I became a Grandmaster. And when I finished my BCom, I broke into the top 10 in the world. And so this is quite fortunate, because if all these things had been moved by 2 years this way, that way, 10th, when you choose your subject, 12th when you choose your university, and so on, and these are moments you hesitate. Is sports really what I want to be doing or not? And should I choose another path? But I was very lucky with the timing as well. And I think one chess player said it best. Nobody decides to become a chess player, they decide not to become one. So it was easier to just remain as a chess player.
Oh, wonderful. So my side question, and which should be of interest to this audience, for some reason, had you not chosen chess, would you have considered chartered accountancy since you were already a commerce graduate?
That was the plan. I mean, we're talking close to 40 years ago, right? And the done thing was to keep studying and have a proper career, at least in reserve. But my chess kept doing well, and I started my BCom so that in the event the chess didn't work out, that was the alternate stream. So in fact, yes, that's almost exactly what I had become.
So wonderful. Even a world-class player keeps a plan B handy. So that's a lesson I draw from this. But even more important lesson or more important thought process that I have, that had he chosen the more trodden path, he would have been amongst us and he would have given all of us a run for our money in competing in this profession. So my next question, that in your case, your success came very early in age, when you were barely a teenager. So how did you handle that success? And what role did your family, your coaches, the environment in which you grew up played in making you the kind of person and personality you became at that stage?
I guess that for me, a lot of the things people discover about the world in other ways, chess became my pathway to that. I got self-confidence after I became a strong chess player. So in effect, I was deriving my self-confidence and all. I remember a couple of people, once there was an interview request, and because they had read about me in the newspaper that I was a student of this school, they came to the school, asked the principal if they could meet me because they wanted to do an interview. And the principal said, okay, I'll call him, you can ask him. So he sent for me. I went down. I think my first or second interview in my life. I mean, I'd been written about before, but not asked. And they asked me, would you like to do the interview? I said, sure, you can come to my parents' place at this time on this date. And my mother was quite shocked. She said, you told them that? But yes, I think I really got it from chess. I didn't have coaches and all, so it's essentially all of us trying to play. But for me, chess is the way I started traveling. Chess is the way I learnt about many other things in life. So I think it really was the pathway.
So as a small sequel, what advice would today's Viswanath Grandmaster, World Champion Viswanathan Anand have to offer to the younger Vishy Anand of 16?
I think it would be very nice to be that innocent again. But at the same time, I would point out some obvious mistakes. Don't be too keen to become a friend of that person. Don't be too keen for this. Just be a bit more relaxed. Most of the advice I would give to myself when I was young, or the moments I regret from then, are along the lines of wanting something too bad or trying too hard to have something. So,
as a person who's found his passion and chose a career that early, is there a feeling that you missed out on something that you still feel some regret for in those younger years, or it is the journey which was so beautiful that there are very few regrets?
no, I understand I could have experienced the world in many different ways, but I don't feel envy or regret. I just think I meet interesting people, and I think that's really fascinating. What would have my life have been like if I had done that? But for me, it's always understood that to be something else, I'd have to give up something else. You can only do one or two things. You can't do very much more, and I'm quite comfortable with that. So it's not envy or regret, but certainly there are fields that I'm very curious about.
A lot of us who did our chartered accountancy alongside our graduation keep feeling that we did not enjoy college life enough. That is why this question, that when you are choosing to do something, inevitably, as they say, kuch to chhoot hi jata hai. So,
actually, in college, I also missed the culturals. I missed all those things. But at the same time, I was in some exotic place doing interesting things. So I never quite had the feeling of missing out on something.
The next thing I want to say, that when I look at the way your career moved, you moved from the national stage to the global stage, to the world stage. When I look at a lot of us in the profession, we become competent and complacent on the national arena, but we really hesitate to venture out globally. So in this impressive but intimidating shift from going from national to global, what were the challenges and how did you derive your strength?
Again, for me, I transcended the national stage when I became a Grandmaster and I became a World Junior Champion. Both of those things already were path-breaking because nobody from India had ever done either one of those things. In fact, no one from Asia had ever been World Junior Champion, and no one from India had been a Grandmaster. So I had the beautiful situation where I could try for almost anything. And whatever I did would be the first time automatically. But I didn't feel too much pressure in doing it. I could try. And most of my life was like this. I would get something, then I'd feel, well, I'm curious now if I can do one more step. Let's see, and take it like that. Of course, a lot of setbacks and blows happen. But for me, it was frankly a very nice situation because yeah, I had a blank slate to work on, so to speak.
Uncharted waters.
Uncharted waters and really no pressure because there was a lot of pressure to who would be the first Indian Grandmaster. But after that, I really sort of lived on my own for a very long time.
Correct. So, you know, there is a charm in treading the uncharted waters, but there is also the lack of advice from somebody who has done it before. When you look at the chess community now, do you think that they are at a distinct advantage because they have role models from their own culture and own country to follow, or it doesn't really matter in a game like chess?
It definitely matters when you meet someone who's done things that you aspire to do. It helps a lot. First of all, I think it makes it seem more realistic. Otherwise, it feels very abstract. Reading about some legend in a book, it's almost nothing to do with you. But when you meet a person and you realize that you can actually learn something from them, I guess it gives you some confidence. Having said that, I had no lack of advice on how I could do better in chess. In fact, people are quite freewheeling in their advice. Good advice was a different story, but advice I got a lot out of. Somehow when you're young and you're new, people just think we can give a lot of free tips and things. But from all that, there was still some useful tidbits. So even you could see people sharing experiences, and many years later I would think, actually, what happened to me now was very similar to that. And yeah.
Okay. So in your journey of, say, the first 30 years, at several times you stayed away from India. Earlier in Philippines, then you chose to be in a European country for better opportunities. You also learned foreign languages. You possibly also assimilated a different culture. How did all this impact you both in your game and personally? And today's Viswanathan Anand considers himself a global citizen or essentially an Indian?
Okay. I got used to the idea of traveling very early. By the time I was 14, I was traveling regularly for competitions. And we were still talking at a time when flying was a relative novelty, not the total novelty it was even 20 years before that, but still. You got used to the idea of traveling, of getting visas, applying for this, applying for that. And there was a sense of adventure attached to it. But there was a critical moment when I realized that I would need to work with strong players more often, and I would need to be near them. That the chance meetings are very important. You may go specifically to work with someone, but if you're living in the same town, you bump into each other and you share tips, those are even more valuable. So I moved to Spain, and part of that, within a year or two, I started to speak the language. Then a couple of years later, I was invited to play for a German club, so I learned a little bit of German. I think it's a very important part of being a good chess player. Every language you learn, every, let's say, discomfort you overcome helps you, and you can often work it back to your chess. Um, I think you just become a broader person, and it improves your perspective in many ways. So it was a very important stage for me. I became slightly more mature because I was living on my own, all that. I think most people who live in hostels find that they come out of it, they're slightly changed. Same thing for me. And I think probably both. I'm used to traveling all the time, and I feel very strange. Like during the pandemic, it felt very strange to be in India for a whole year without even going near the airport. But at the same time, you really can't be from everywhere. And most of my visits are fairly superficial. I will go to one city, I'll get through the airport, go to my hotel, compete in the tournament or get the job done, then go back to the airport and think, and what did I really attain culturally? Nothing. So I'm a traveler, but in the end I realized, I am very Indian.
Great. So, as I understand, you like traveling, wildlife
Yes.
traveling. You are also fond of astronomy and space, and Carl Sagan is one of the persons you admire. So if you had a choice of either doing a wildlife safari or going to Antarctica, which I believe is still on your bucket list, or going for a space travel, what would you choose?
I have been on wildlife safaris, many of them, and they are actually one of my favorite kinds of holiday. I really, and it's the only place where you get to do it, where you go, you wake up very early in the morning, and you ride out, and you just have to have the patience to sit and wait for something interesting to happen. And that is one of the best experiences you can have, because the rest of life we're always trying to force matters, so this is nice. Between Antarctica and space, I'm going to say Antarctica. I don't think space is going to be a lot of fun to visit for another maybe 100 or 150 years, frankly. So, whereas Antarctica looks very doable right now, even if it's much too cold. But yeah, I'll probably settle for Antarctica.
That's nice to know. Because of this, I had a chance to pick up your book and read. And I must say for all the audiences here, that Mind Master is a book authored by Viswanathan Anand, and it is an amazing book. In fact, if you read the chapter headings, it almost reads like a book which could have been written by a professional for the professionals. So even for somebody like me who's not a chess player, the book has tremendous learning, would recommend that book. One of the things that you have stated in the book is the importance of the strategy and the tactics to marry each other. In our profession, particularly in lot of the medium-sized or large firms, what we find is that we spend a lot of time in execution, but too little in strategizing. So tell us something about how do you create a strategy and then develop the execution for it? What kind of effort goes in and what happens when you are executing without a strategy?
On the chessboard, tactics are everything. Chess is literally a game of, if I do this, because I did this, my opponent can respond in a certain way. So it's very, very tactical and very, very short range, despite its reputation as a strategical sport. And in chess, the smallest tactical mistake will cost you basically your strategy for the entire day. But when you get home, you cannot be tactical about how you prepare for another day. If I'm going to play against a certain opponent, I have to be able to say, my opponent does this very well, does this very badly. These are my strengths. You know, where does my strength meet my opponent's weakness? How do I, and then you have to do odds. I may have 10 things that I really want to happen, 15 things I do not want to see today, and something in the middle. And then it's just odds. You're going to have to prepare for all those scenarios and minimize the chances that things go horribly wrong. But you cannot do this simply by writing a list and thing. You have to be able to sit down, put yourself in your opponent's shoes, just think, if I was sitting in my opponent's room right now, what would I be planning to do against me? And then you kind of work from that. And it's a lot of informed guesses. You will finally say, this is what I most expect to happen. This is what I'm terrified of, so I will spend some time doing that because maybe there's a very small chance it happens, but if it happens, it's a disaster, so I need to muddle that up. Like this, and you cannot do this without a strategy. You have to, because without a strategy, the number of things you have to do just goes up a lot. A strategy gives you some clarity. You then are able to reduce the number of scenarios you prepare for. And even long term, you have to be able to look at your games and say, these were my weaknesses 1 year ago, these are still my weaknesses today, why am I unable to break out? You have to think conceptually and before you can improve. And that's the big difference between computers and humans, that they are much stronger players, but they cannot answer questions in this way, and that is where our key insight comes in.
That's very interesting. I have some questions on technology and AI also later on. But so tell us a little bit about role of innovation, surprise, and if you specifically you can share the incident about moving from the 1E4 opening to 1D4 opening, role of experimentation and curiosity in becoming a world-class player, whether in chess or as a professional.
So this is a strategy which applies to life in general, and I will summarize it the following way. You cannot only do what you're best at. Even more so when what you're good at is what everybody is expecting you to do. It's just totally predictable. And you only grow when you do things that you're not familiar with. You have to force yourself. You can make it a regular habit and do it in small doses, or once in a while you just take a very big risk and do it. So in 2008, I was going to play Vladimir Kramnik in a match for the world title. And in 2007, I won the world title and I was going to defend it against him. So I was sitting in my hotel room and trying to think what should be my strategy for next year's match. Because based on that, I could decide who I wanted to be part of my team, what I was going to work on, and things like that. And the statistics were something like this. I had won 7 games against him. He had won 9 games against me. But all his 9 wins were when he had the white pieces. He had never beaten me with the black pieces until that point. For me, I had 4 wins with black, 3 with white, and that was my 7 wins. So the obvious conclusion was, I find very hard to break through his defenses. That's why my winning score with white is so low. But my counterattack is very good. I'm able to win games with black pieces, though he is still leading me by 5 points, 9-4. But at least I won 4 games, but he's never beaten me with the black pieces. So some imbalances there. And one of the reasons I decided that my white score was so low was because I was playing an opening which I think is not very suitable against him. The king pawn, e4. So then the obvious conclusion was, and I tried to visualize, if I play e4 and he plays the usual stuff he always plays against e4, and I was not very enthusiastic about this right away, just thinking about it, do I really want to sit through a whole year studying this boring position, that sort of thing. And if you're not able to understand why the first move is important, think of it like a language. For me, at that point, e4 was like my mother tongue. I had spoken it since I was a child. You could wake me up with cold water and I could run to the board and I could still play e4. Very much like a mother tongue. And for me, learning d4 was like learning a second language. So literally a different part of the brain is dealing with it because everything is not automatic for you. And this is the thing, you concentrate much better than when you speak your mother tongue, right? When you're speaking, you're conscious, am I making a mistake? You're conscious, does this come before that? Did that come before this? How do I construct the sentence? Literally, that's the thought process in chess. And then your sense of danger that you will make a mistake, that something will go wrong is also higher. So that was the risk that I saw. And I felt that it was well worth taking. Second, the joy I got in preparing a new opening, taking that risk and studying a new opening, I really enjoyed working for those 4 months that I worked on chess before the match. And it was a big risk, but at the same time, I was looking to violently shift the terrain of battle. I wanted him not only in d4, but I also with the black pieces, I wanted the sharpest possible lines that I could work with. And looking back, it's easy to just say that's of course the right answer. It is not, because if you do this multiple times, once in a while it will go horribly wrong as well. Okay. So there's always a bit of a trade-off. But I don't think it's an accident that that's the best match I've ever played in my life, and my most dominating result against Kramnik in my life. Both happened in that one scenario, simply because, and so you need to take this risk once in a while and do something that feels dangerous, because only then your sense of danger is heightened. And I found this very helpful on the chessboard. So in chess also we have this sensation of being an autopilot. You do something, the same thing you did 100 more times, and your hands just want to make the move without even thinking. You're not looking for new possibilities. But when you shift opening like this, then you're much more focused. And I still think that decision worked for that reason.
Great. So I think there is a lot to learn from this, that once in a while, if your game becomes predictable, to bring some newness, you need to take some risk, you need to have a different strategy. And I would also say that it holds even for all your personal relationship. So all the guys here, once in a while taking flowers when it is neither her birthday nor her anniversary will do all of you a lot good. In terms of facing setbacks, because when you are playing at this level, it cannot be that you are winning every match or you are winning every tournament. How do you deal with these situations? How do you bounce back to play another game, another tournament, and another entire season? How do you, what is it that makes you come back with greater energy or greater zest?
Mostly it's about recovering emotionally. So when I'm doing badly during a tournament, then the problem is, how do I put the unpleasant game off from my head and focus on the game tomorrow? Because clearly at that moment, that's the priority. You don't have time to reflect and think. You had a bad day, you've got to push it out of your head and play the next game well. Important is to get a good night's sleep. By good night's sleep, I mean you shouldn't be tossing and turning. You shouldn't be going over the game you lost to over and over in your head, all those things. And that's not easy, because your brain desperately wants to find some closure. So amongst the things I do is to go to the gym or do some intense physical exercise so that I'm very tired and I'll fall asleep. And then it's just a discipline. Once you survive, you know it's only one day, and if you can, the next day you play a slightly better game, you don't lose it, then the defeat starts to feel further and further away, you get to normalcy. The long-term problem is when I have a very bad tournament, how do I recover? And most of the time the answer is not to look at chess at all. Get him very far away from the game. So a couple of times a good wildlife safari is right after a bad result. You want to go somewhere where you don't think about the game at all. Karpov once told me this about a player called Ivanchuk, one of my contemporaries. He said bad results are terrible for him because he cannot change the subject at all. And I think he was right. His point was simply Ivanchuk doesn't have too many other interests like chess. So for him, recovering from chess is harder because he cannot switch to something else. That's his point. I think that's the time when the first week you want to pursue some hobby or do something else, anything but chess. Then once you've recovered emotionally, then you can come back and then you can do the technical analysis. What went wrong? How do I get better? All that. But first you have to calm down, and only then you can be reasonable about the problem.
Great. So, my next question really is a little away from chess, but about you as a person. So, somebody who has been wedded to unparalleled success, you have displayed tremendous equanimity and humility. You are known to be modest in the most trying circumstances. How did these qualities help you in your sport and in your professional recognition? And also that when this is a personality you portray, is it sometimes in a different cultural context particularly mistaken for weakness or lack of confidence?
Okay, the second question first. Yes, quite often people who come from very aggressive cultures, very self-confident cultures which where marketing yourself is not unknown, they will often wonder why you're so low energy, so it seems to them. And there are people who thrive on confrontation, so many of them have said that I have like killer spirit and things like that. So yes, that perception can very easily come. But for me, I know that if at the end of the day I won the game, then that's the only thing that matters. And in fact, I think then they look foolish for thinking that I'm weak because, so I know that the most important thing is to win. And what's even worse is to thump your own chest and then to lose is, I think, the worst mistake you can make. Because that's really ridiculous. If you're going to thump your chest, then you have to win. Yeah. You're going to start a war, you better win it, that sort of thing. Thank you for the equanimity. I would say I'm simply a very good actor. Anyone who's been with me in a tournament knows that I have intense swings and I can get very, very irritated. I'm very thing. And anyone who's seen my nails will know that I suffer a lot during a game. But I was sort of brought up in this chess culture of not giving away what you're thinking about the game to your opponent. Your opponent should not be able to read it off your face, or at least that's how I grew up. And so for me, most of the time, even if I'm suffering inside, I'll keep a straight face and keep looking, and it's become second nature to me. But I am suffering inside. I think this generation of chess players is going out because now every chess player is thinking, what will I look like on social media this evening? And so then they don't act anymore. But for me, somehow that's not the way I was brought up, and it's just very easy to keep facial control. So I'll phrase that very precisely, just to keep facial control. That's all.
Great. Chess has been portrayed in a lot of plays, in movies, in TV serials as a game which possesses you. mentally. It is portrayed as a game which completely consumes the mind of the player. How do you maintain control over your mind, retain peace and calm amidst the high-stake games, and how do you get chess out of your mind once the game is over? I think latter one you partly answered, but more importantly,
I think it might be a general thing that doctors may think about their work even after the day is finished. I'm sure chartered accountants do it as well. We all go over stuff over and over again. I don't think chess players are more obsessed than that. It's just that nobody else understands what they're thinking of, and so we look a bit otherworldly. I mean, you were mentioning the roses and stuff, so I was reminded of this thing that once my wife put my stuff in the hotel safe, and she said the key combination is very easy for you to remember, the passcode. It's 2706. And my question to her was, why is that easy to remember? Whose rating is it? And of course it was our anniversary. But this is the problem of being too much in your own world. I think the other problem is that almost all the movies about chess players focus on the ones who are very troubled, not about the 100 chess players who are actually quite well adjusted. So famously, Bobby Fischer,
yes,
he was clearly, he struggled with a lot of issues, but even he was quite friendly and approachable to other chess players. Okay. So as long as he felt that you spoke the same language, he was quite relaxed. But chess had this disproportionately. Again, now that's changing. A new generation is coming in, technology is things. So we are now more on the nerdy side than the crazy side, but it's getting better.
So since you spoke about technology, you know how they talk about 5 stages of grieving? I believe that there are also 5 stages when technology enters a field. And most of us start with indifference, then resistance, then fear, intimidation, then acceptance, but very few go to the space where they actually thrive because of the technology. In your own case, you would have seen the game transitioning, and I think in sports, no other game has been as impacted by AI, technology, robotic play as others, because most of the others do have a physical angle to the play. So what has been your journey and interactions with technology, and where do you see the game going? Where do you see yourself going with the technology?
For me, almost all resistance to technology comes from whether you're particularly good at something which is diminishing in importance or not. So imagine the first generation of really, when I started to play at the international scene, most of my rivals were people who grew up, let's say, in the Soviet Union, with the best training methods, the best index cards and files. And when the first computer came along, and instead of index cards and libraries, you just had to do database searches, they were the ones who resented it the most, because their big advantage had been neutralized slightly. And because it is completely new technology which you had to adapt your methods to. But you're right. Most people will go through those 5 stages, but not always in the same order. In my case, I actually thrived at the beginning as well, because I was not well organized. So something which organized things for me was fantastic. And I had this natural, maybe Indian thing to jump into a PC environment. So that was also a thing. And so in the initial stage, I benefited a lot from it. I knew how to search for everybody very fast. I took in stuff very well. But I had stages where the computer completely neutralized my opening preparation because the way it was developing. And at that point, I was stuck for very long periods of time because not that I was I wasn't obviously resisting it, but I was unable to rewire how I worked. Though I knew that that was the answer, I still didn't know how to do it. And I fell behind quite a lot. So I think you go through all these stages, but not necessarily in sequence. And the most important thing is to be ready to drop anything. I think by now it's become clear after all this thing that you should be ready to start afresh. And that's one of the things I tied to my lessons in learning. So I mentioned earlier that you will not have a sustainable career if you're only doing what you're good at. You will have to do things you're bad at. But technology made it much easier for me to improve at things that I was bad at. So, implementing that systematically, in fact, becoming good at what you're bad by simply pushing some of the difficult bits to the computer and thing. Also, in chess, psychological things can be confronted. So, you can have serious psychological issues with certain opponents. They intimidate you, their play neutralizes your play, which makes you very uncomfortable, all these things. But the computer is perfect for things. So all you have to do is to sit there and think, this player whom I hate playing, what are the moves that he likes to do? And then you set it up against the computer. Either you try to be the opponent you don't like, and you let the computer face them, or you can reverse it. You try to be on the weaker side and you let the computer be that. And it gives you a chance to try it once, try it twice, try it third time. And the reason you improve with the computer, not against that person, because there's no humiliation involved, there's no embarrassment involved. You can ask the computer any number of stupid questions and it will patiently answer, so that then it's a good environment because you actually then feel happy asking even the most basic questions. Whereas with a teacher, you will hesitate. They think I'm stupid. With a computer, that's fantastic. And second, you can simulate the worst things and you go through them and then you realize actually there's no need to feel so embarrassed by this, and that will give you confidence and you can get better at these things. So, technology, unfortunately, it's available to everyone. It would be fantastic if I was the only one with access to some brilliant stuff, but it's available to everyone. And it's totally non-judgmental, so it's a totally neutral blank space, and you simply cannot avoid it. But at the same time, for me, the big rewards are there, being able to simulate and test things that I otherwise would never get around to doing.
So, how in an organization, there is a CEO who's supported by a COO, who's supported by heads of functions, who's also supported now by a CTO or a Chief Technology Officer. How does your chess relate that way? Are you in the game solo, or you rely on a support system to make things happen for you? And if you could elaborate, because the reason I'm specifically asking this question for this audience, that as chartered accountants, a lot of us are into that space where we want to do a lot of things ourselves. So,
So, in chess as well, we call them seconds. They're basically your trainers, your sparring partners, your coaches and so on. You need other people to work with. First of all, no matter how good you are at it, you will not be completely objective about yourself. There will always be one area where it's almost like you're afraid of the truth there, and you will not go there. But you need someone who can dispassionately tell you, look, you're lousy at this, you need to do better here, or you're very good at this, but you still need to improve. So this dispassionate advice, a second opinion essentially, is very valuable. Second, even in chess, to to say someone is a strong player simply means that all things considered, their results will outperform. Not that they are best at everything. So, individual parts of the game, there's always someone else who's better at it than I am, or has studied it better. And you have to stick to the experts in every field and exchange ideas. So it's important, very, very important to have a team. And nowadays, quite often, there's a person who's, I wouldn't call them CTO exactly for us, but someone who's very, very good with the computer, good at keeping track of data. But especially at the end of the day, one person who's good at talking to the entire team and saying, what did you work on? What did you work on? What did you work on? Putting it all together, see if it makes sense, or see if there's a conflict of opinions, for instance, and things. So even there, slowly a sort of CTO function is coming into being. This super specialization is taking over in chess also. So we have no choice but to, and some people are incredibly good at studying the game, but they don't like playing it.
Oh.
Which is funny for a chess player, but anyway. And there are others who have the opposite. So the second type you keep for sparring, and the first type is to do the analysis, and so on. So we need to get second opinions and so on, and then a lot of obvious mistakes get eliminated. Because what's obvious to one person is not at all obvious to others. But you just say, look, this is wrong for this reason. I tried it once before. Suddenly everyone, their eyes open. So it's very important to have good cohesive teams.
Very interesting. I think it's important to know that there are some people who like to, like in our context, some people who like to go out to the market, to the clients, and some people who like to do the groundwork. And if we are able to assign the right work to the right person, we would also thrive.
It's a very good analogy.
Yes. In terms of career transition, so Viswanathan Anand, who was champion, it was a question of personal win, of a victory. From that to Viswanathan Anand, who is a leader, who is creating an entire cadre of chess players, who is contributing back to the society, who is bringing chess into schools, who is taking up leadership positions, who has become a voice to reckon with. How do you manage the transition from being a champion to being a leader to being involved in causes larger than your game?
One of the hardest things for chess players to do is to retire. Because you always have the feeling you could try a little bit longer. And because chess is such a dominant part of your life, you don't know exactly what to do, what to fill your day with. So, by 2019, I was starting to think that maybe I should retire or find a slightly different relationship with the game. And then I don't know if you can call it luck, but I got to do a trial retirement for force majeure reasons, the pandemic. I actually was forcibly retired along with a lot of people for a year. And then when I started to play again, I found that I really enjoyed playing. And then I really enjoyed switching off. And then I really enjoyed playing again. So that's my current arrangement, which is to play occasionally. And that allows me to follow the game, to study it, gives me a motivation to study it and so on. So I keep in touch. But I don't play the World Championship cycle anymore and all that. So that takes some pressure off as well. Essentially, I didn't want to be doing the same thing for the next 10 years as well. I mean, I see some 60-year-olds and 65-year-olds playing chess. And I think, well, it's just too much work for not a lot of result because, I mean, their age is a handicap. So then I was offered the chance to do two very nice things. So Westbridge, this company, Westbridge Capital, they asked me if I wanted to do something together. And then I thought, well, why not have an academy for youngsters, the most promising youngsters. And that led to Vaka. And amongst the products of that are Pragnananda, Gukesh, Vaishali, Nihal Sarin. So all of them are in my academy. And we started working December 2020, and now they're all going to play the candidates this year in April in Toronto for the world title. So that was nice, and I really enjoyed it because you're able to mostly what you give them, because nowadays the best answers are given by computers, but what you can share is your thinking process and how you dealt with different situations and things like that. The second one was much more unexpected. So the Russian incumbent of the World Chess Federation, a person called Mr. Arkady Dvorkovich, the president of the World Chess Federation, he's someone I've known for a very long time. He used to be president of the Russian Chess Federation. He organized a lot of my matches and so on, so I knew him well. But in in April 22, I suddenly got a phone call from him. And he said, would you like to be deputy president of FIDE on my ticket? My initial reaction was, what? What am I going to do there? But as usual, my wife helped me overcome my doubts and kind of said, what are you going to lose? It's a fantastic chance. You don't even have to campaign, and you're given a chance to be deputy president, so why don't you try it out? I was still a bit nervous, but nonetheless I tried it out, and I enjoy that a lot because being in a federation is very different from being a chess player.
Yes.
And you get to see the other side of it. And also I've managed to do some key partnerships on behalf of the World Chess Federation with some companies, and travel to a few places to promote the game and so on. So you get to experience the other parts of chess. And I think in that sense I managed to keep very busy. I have like 3 or 4 things going, one of which is being a chess player still. So I'm not fully retired. I always call myself semi-retired, and that's the kind of balance I've got right now.
Great. There are a few questions from the audience. So this is what the audience poll has the highest votes. Failure helps us to grow big. Do you remember your first failure and lesson from it? How did you overcome it? First significant failure.
Yes. There were a couple of failures in the sub-junior and junior championships, both state level and national level. And I was too young to really face up to or something. I mean, my method of facing up to every failure was simply go to the next tournament and continue. And then when I was 13 years old, I had a leap in strength where I started winning every tournament I played in. But I had no explanation for why this was happening. In fact, I didn't feel that I had become stronger. I felt everyone else had become weaker. But now I realize it was just that I was working, and sometimes the brain needs time for everything to fall into place. And then once it falls in place, you suddenly have a lot of clarity, and that was a big factor. Once when I became a Grandmaster, I did not have a good result for almost 8 months. And for me, then it was clear that what the problem was. At the end of 8 months, I understood the problem, which is that till I become a Grandmaster, at every tournament I knew what to do. I had to look at the chart, what is the Grandmaster requirement, and then just aim for that. And suddenly I had nothing to aim for because my title could not be taken away. It's like a doctorate, you keep it for life. So I did not know specifically what to aim for, and that's why I was drifting all over the place. So once I found some new goals, I stabilized, and things went much better. But failure is kind of constant. I had real disasters in '89 once, after I became world champion 2 or 3 times. And nowadays, the thing is just hang in there, keep working, and try to see what psychological feelings attitude you have to change, make small adjustments. If you're focusing too much on the result, try to play something else. If you're too relaxed, try focusing on some result, this sort of thing. And typically it fixes itself. maybe I've gotten to the point now where that doesn't phase me out anymore. So.
Great. To summarize this wonderful discussion, the way I look at your journey and your transition from champion to leader to creating an entire platoon of chess players in the country and creating that interest. And since now you know Hindi, I thought I will quote 2 lines in Hindi. It reminds me of this, मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग आते गए और काफला बनता गया. This is the story of Viswanathan Anand, who started as one star on the horizon, and he has managed to create an entire super system of so many stars. In terms of closing this session, I'm sorry all the audience questions could not be accommodated because most of the content has already been covered. I would like to dedicate parts of this poem by Longfellow. Not enjoyment and not sorrow is our destined end or way, but to act that each tomorrow find us farther than today. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our life sublime and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Vishi Anand, today's session will be remembered by BCA for a long time to come because you have really left footprints on the sands of time for Bombay Chartered Accountants Society.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on the 75th celebrations to all of you.